You're listening to the Yoga Medicine Podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Land. This podcast brings you information and resources to enhance the therapeutic effects of your practice based on a deeper understanding of anatomy, physiology, and the integration of modern science and research with traditional practices and experiences. Join me and my co-hosts Tiffany Cruikshank and Katya Bach as we dive into all things yoga, research, and wellness. Hi, Dana. Welcome back to the Yoga Medicine Podcast. Thank you for making time for us again.
Thanks, Rachel. It's so great to be back.
This is, I think, going to be a really useful one and a little bit kind of to one side of what we normally talk about, because we're talking social media, and it's something that a lot of teachers, maybe our teachers in particular, have a kind of tortured relationship with. And you're here to share some strategies to take some of the pain out of it, starting with getting a bit of clarity about who we're talking to and what we're trying to say. So should we dive straight into it?
Yeah, let's. I'll just say one thing that did just come to mind. I had a tortured relationship with social media for a long time as well, and I think that I still sometimes do. I'm not sure if that torture ever goes away, because there's just this like feeling of constantly needing to put stuff out there.
Yeah.
So what we're aiming to do today is, make it simple, give some really great strategies, and hopefully lighten the burden a little bit, and hopefully make it fun.
Yeah, and I think you've hit the nail on the head there by you brought up an image for me of trying to feed this kind of bottomless, starving beast of always having to kind of shovel content in there to keep the beast going. And I guess I have a pretty comfortable relationship with social media, but I'm still very aware of, I haven't posted for a little while. I'd better, yeah, that feeling of pressure to keep the content coming is real. All right, so let's start clarifying things for people and kind of making it easier by helping people figure out who they're talking to. So we're going to start with what is a niche and why it's important.
There's a lot of definitions out there, but the one that I love the most and what's been most helpful to me and what's allowed me to actually embrace, choosing a niche is thinking about it as the problem that you solve.
Yes.
So, people come to yoga because they're experiencing something in their life and they're hoping yoga will help with that. So if you think about that, what is the problem that I solve, that can help you start to narrow down what your niche is. Mm-hmm. Some people mistake this for the style of yoga. So I think people will be like, I teach vinyasa yoga, or I teach yin yoga, or I teach restorative yoga. That, to me, that's not really a niche, because that's more of the toolkit, the tools that are in your toolkit to help you solve the problem. So it can be like, you can use the style of yoga that you teach. You can become really well known for it, but I think a niche is not limited to that. And if you're really using it as a business tool or as a way to grow your business, it's really helpful to think of it as the problem that you solve.
Yeah, I like that.
Go for it.
Well, I was just going to say, coming at it from the yoga perspective, I do think some people think of it as, well, I'm a yin teacher, or I teach hot, sweaty power vinyasa. Coming at it from the business perspective, when I did my business degree back in the day, it was the era of mass marketing, and direct marketing was only just starting to be a thing. And so your niche was all about income, gender, demographic type information. And I think the world has changed so much since then. If that was ever accurate, it's definitely not true now, that you're not going to speak coherently if you think, well, I'm talking to women aged 35 to 45 who earn around $100,000. No, you need to speak to people who are coming to you for similar reasons, that are driven by similar aims or share similar values. And that's so much more helpful than trying to visualize a bag of demographic information.
Yeah, and I think really, people with a wide a range of incomes could still come to you.
Of course.
Men and women can still come to you for, the thing it is.
And people of other genders. Yeah. All sorts.
Everything. And probably the only exception I could think of to that, and maybe because that's quite like personal to me, is obviously with pregnancy yoga, you've got a certain demographic and also probably an age range in there, and maybe the postnatal, postpartum yoga as well.
Mhm.
Um, but what I was going to say before about, I think like, someone might know that they say want to learn handstands, and so they might, they'll go and find someone particularly in that, which is probably a more of a vinyasa or maybe ashtanga style of yoga. But most
Mhm.
people that have some kind of problem, say back pain, or they want to, use yoga to help recover between weightlifting or sports sessions,
Mhm.
or they want to increase
Something
their
more therapeutic.
mobility,
Yeah.
yeah, or they need stress relief. If they're newer to yoga, they might have no idea what style of yoga they need.
Mhm.
So that's why it's good to think a little bit more broadly instead of sort of going like I'm a yin yoga teacher. Well, who is it that I actually want to help?
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's really important. And obviously, I already understand this because it made for me social media and writing in general, articles, for example, so much easier to be imagining myself talking to a person who was asking me a question, the kind of person who comes up after class and goes, I'm experiencing X, my shoulder's niggling a little bit. What can I do about that? That's the sort of thing that I'm envisaging whenever I'm writing a post or writing an article or creating any content. So I get why having a niche in your mind makes everything so much easier, but maybe you could kind of explain that a little bit more in detail for people, why that's simpler than just, well, I teach vinyasa, so I'm going to be talking about everything vinyasa related, or I teach yin, so I'll be talking about all things yin.
So this took me a while to come around to and to understand myself.
Mm,
But I think it is about coming back to the business perspective or the marketing perspective. So essentially, if you're a yoga teacher wanting to have a yoga business and have clients that are coming to you for yoga, they're going to understand that you're for them based on that problem that you solve.
mhm,
So if in your content you're talking about things that are going to help them with that shoulder pain, or you're talking about things that might be contributing to their stress, or you're talking different practices, tips, techniques, whatever, for that particular problem, then when you put yourself in the shoes of the client, the potential client, they then understand like, oh, this is a person that can help me, and then there's potential for that person to become your student, your client. So it's really about signaling to the broader audience that you're for them, and essentially allowing you to stand out from all of the other yoga teachers that teach yin yoga or vinyasa yoga. And
yeah.
that creates also creates authority, and so it helps you to stand out.
I like that. So yeah, it's signaling. I love the fact that you said that. It made me think about dating apps for some random reason, even though I've never been on one in my entire life. But that's it. People don't have forever to get to know you and find out who you are and what you stand for. So you've got to put shorthand signals out there that allow people to see that information really quickly. Who's this person? What's important to them? What do they know about? What are they good at? And if you can send those quick signals, then you start to build a relationship with this person. This person is for me, or this person is not for me, and I'm for them. And that's the beginning of making the whole rest of the process much easier, of them becoming your student and attending classes, or maybe diving in deeper with a workshop or some private sessions. Yeah, dating apps all the
Yeah,
way.
all the way. I've never been on one either, so I can't give you any examples. But I just think, you know, um, we're hopefully doing a little renovation soon and putting a pool in the backyard. And there's a few little different elements. I know, really exciting. Um, there's a few different elements. We need to do a tiled pool deck area, and we need to do an excavation, and we might need to get a crane. And so if I have those problems, if I need someone that can come and tile a deck, I want to look for a tiler, right? I'm not
Mhm.
going to look for someone with different skill set. So I think if you think about it like that, if you have a leak in your house, if you need a plumber. So
Mhm.
it's that kind of thing where I think when you start to really talk about how you can help people, and that's essentially what a niche is. It's, here's how I can help you with with this specific problem. It then goes, I mean, we both grew up in the days of phone books, but I do remember opening up, the yellow pages to look for things when I
Mm-hmm.
was, I
AAA insurance,
yeah,
AAA plumbing.
yeah. So it helps them. It helps them figure out like, oh, okay, this person is the one I'm looking for.
Yeah. So you've really set out that for you the thing that stood out the most was the signaling side of it, of much more quickly communicating, I'm for you to meet your problem, to help you with your need, because people's time is precious. They're not going to spend hours researching which teacher is for them. They're looking for those quick signals. And the thing that really stuck out for me was when I do sit down to write an article or sit down to write a social media post or an email, instead of me sitting looking at a blinking cursor for an hour going, what am I going to say? That process becomes much easier because I can already see the person and I know what's important to them and I know what problems they're trying to solve, and where these problems fit the context in their lives. And so the actual content production side for me is much easier when I'm clear about who I'm talking to, as opposed to, let me write something that will be interesting to anyone who likes yoga. It sounds broad, but it doesn't give you any hook to get started with. Let me talk to somebody who's experiencing back pain, gives you a bunch of different places to start.
Yeah, exactly. And it's more likely that they're going to end up reading what you write, and they go, ooh, I'm someone with that problem. I'm
Mm,
someone with back pain. It catches their attention. And as you said before, time is so precious, especially on social media,
mhm,
that if you're unclear about what it is you do and how it is you help people, then people are going to keep scrolling, right?
mhm,
And you also, if you think about it like kind of selfishly, like I want to know the people that I can help. Like my worst nightmare is someone asking me for a private and I can't actually help them. They might have some kind of problem and I'm just like, I don't know anything about that. But they want me to work with them because they like my, I don't know, the stories that I post about my family or something, or like
mhm,
we're both into rock climbing. I don't know, say something like that. Like I could be posting things that are a bit more personal and they might like me as a person, which is nice. Thank you. But if they come and they're like, hey, I'd love an hour with you, to help me with this
mhm.
problem that I know nothing about, that to me is like, well, I've wasted my time really, and I've
Yeah,
wasted their time.
yeah.
It's not productive. It's not going to go anywhere.
Not to say that you couldn't figure something out and go away and do your research, but at the end of the day, you're putting yourself into a situation where you're not at your best, and you're putting them in a situation where they're not getting the best. So why not just be clear from the outset? And that's easy to say, but people have a lot of objections to creating a niche, don't they? And often they're so subliminal that they don't even realize their objections. It's just, well, I don't have a niche because I'm for everyone. I teach anyone who comes to you, and I don't want to kind of narrow the list down. I might miss people. So what are some
Mm.
of the objections that you've heard people come up with as to why they need to talk to everyone and not a specific group of people with a joint need?
Yeah, so the wanting to be for everyone is definitely a big one, and I think it's worth taking the time just to mention that it just makes your message unclear. So,
Mm,
again, as we mentioned before, if you decide to be for everyone and you're talking about everything, it doesn't give you that chance to really go into depth and to
mm,
really make yourself, stand out as somebody who has credibility and authority and experience in,
mhm,
relevant to. And I mean, they say it takes what, like 7 times of someone interacting with you, or maybe more. I might have that stat wrong, before um, before they're willing to purchase from you or to enter into a relationship with you. So I think, yeah, when you try to be for everyone, you're not giving yourself that chance to really develop that relationship with those specific people.
mm,
Um, and I think, I think, yeah, the way to kind of think about it as like, what do you want to be known for? So,
mm.
from what I've seen, successful yoga teachers really become well known for something. But in your mind, I think it's okay for you to know, like, that doesn't mean that's the only thing that
Yeah.
I do or teach.
Yeah.
And I'm not married to this niche.
Yeah.
I think that's the other part of it too, is people feeling boxed in
Hmm.
and kind of going
What
like,
if
well,
I don't want to
actually,
work with foot pain for the entire rest of my life?
Yeah, and I felt like that. I'm a very multi-passionate person. I have lots of interests, even within yoga.
Hmm.
I mean, I love so much of it, and I love studying. And I was like, how am I ever going to pick a niche? So this was really my struggle for many, many years. But when I actually look back, if I, look back at the last 10 years, or probably more like eight since becoming a yoga medicine therapeutic specialist, I look back and I go like, "Oh, actually, like, the things that I made money from were the things that I niched in,"
Hmm.
Like, yes, and for me, like, at the start, that was low back pain, actually, and then probably I moved into prenatal, and at that time, like, was I also teaching, fast, sweaty flows? Yes. Was I also teaching yin yoga and Chinese medicine? Yes, but the things that I actually got like repeat clients from and multiple
Hmm.
clients from that made me an income and a living was, those few years that I really specialized in low back pain. Because you get that first client and the second one, and then they're like, oh wow, like she really helped me.
Yeah,
And then those turn into referrals, and then you start to become
100%.
known for this, right?
I'm so glad you said that because I had the same experience of my niche choosing me. I had, and I do want to say, if you're a brand new teacher, don't feel like you need to walk out of teacher training with a super specific group of people and a problem that you're going to solve. Give yourself a bit of time just to teach and kind of figure things out and decide what you like and what you're good at and what your community needs. Because when I finished teacher training, I thought, I'm going to teach beginners, but I hadn't been a beginner for something like 30 years. And it turned out I was not that good at teaching beginners. And I'm also interested in things that are a lot more subtle than the kinds of things that are of use to beginners. So then I thought, well, I'll teach athletes because my partner was doing multi sport and all of our friends were super outdoorsy people. But we had a kind of value mismatch. I'd be like, what I really think you need to do is rest for a little bit. And they'd be like, well, no, because I need to train. So I didn't really work out for athletes either. My niche, which was working with older people who are recovering from pretty serious health diagnoses or injuries, and they want to practice yoga, but it's not going to be useful for them to go to a group class. They found me. That was not anything I was thinking I would be interested in. But when I look back, the things that were intriguing me in my own practice and in my studies with yoga medicine fit so perfectly for that group. And you hit the nail on the head. Once you do a good job with somebody, you don't need to, print flyers and stick them to telegraph poles around your town. People tell people, and word of mouth is the quickest, the easiest, the cheapest, the highest credibility marketing you can ever do. And so it sort of creates itself, doesn't it?
Yeah, and yeah, you might get that where that niche finds you. And I love also what you said. I was planning to mention that intersection of what your community needs, your interests, and your skills.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that skills part is really important. So as you mentioned, I think part not so much an objection, but maybe a barrier of choosing a niche is just not having experience teaching or not having the skill set to help with a certain problem. So maybe that might mean you might need a little bit more training,
Mm-hmm.
um,
You've got
or
the passion, you've got the excitement about it, but you need more tools in your toolkit. Yeah, that's great
yeah,
advice.
you might be a bit more generalist or superficial kind of in your knowledge base. So that's actually a good place to be because there's so many amazing trainings out there. So if you think something interests you and you're like, oh, could that be my niche? But I'm not sure that I have the right toolkit, you can go out there and get more skills.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then, yeah, I think it's definitely good to keep in mind, your community needs when deciding on your niche because um, if you're decide on something and you live in an area where those people perhaps don't,
Like I
there
live in a
aren't a lot of
retirement
them.
town and I want to do only prenatal. Well, I mean, online
Yeah,
does change things a little bit, doesn't it?
it
But you've
does.
got to be realistic.
Yes.
That would then tell you, well, I'm going to be principally working online because my retirement community, not so many people in the prenatal phase.
Yeah. Yeah. So it is really great to keep in mind what your community needs,
Hmm.
and to also have a look around perhaps at what isn't being offered
Yes.
that also interests you. We're not going
Hmm.
to like the examples that you gave were really great. If it's it might not be a good match. And
Yeah.
that's important. But it's okay to dabble, I think. You
Yes.
know, like I think that's what I was kind of starting off saying, that you're not married to your niche. You don't need to feel boxed in. You can have, you know, I don't know, 60, 70% of your work in that niche, and still maybe teach your group classes where you get to experiment and play around with, you know, different other ideas.
Mm.
But coming back to, you know, what we're here to talk about, which is the social media side of things, that niche is going to give you clarity. It's going to help you when you sit down to know what to say, to start coming up with content ideas, and to, you know, to brainstorm, and to actually use that, all that information and knowledge and tips that you do have, to really channel it into one direction, is going to make it really powerful mechanism to, you know, magnetize those people to you.
Yeah, and when you're talking about the other kind of 20-30% of your business that doesn't fit in that niche, they're still going to be enormously reassured to see this is somebody who seems to really know their stuff. This is somebody who communicates really clearly and concisely and consistently. I trust them. I trust that they talk about things that they know about. They know about the things that they're talking about. You know, maybe I don't fit perfectly into that basket, but I can trust them to take good care of me. I think we think they'll be immediately turned off, but actually people are happy to see that you're credible, even if you're not completely aligned with their needs. Yeah. So I think the objections to niche kind of fall to me on two sides of the spectrum. The one that you talked about last was I don't know enough. I don't have a specialty. I'm not expert enough yet. And I think that was some great advice to start dabbling a little bit, figure out what you're passionate about, have a look around in your community at what's needed and isn't being covered at the moment, and where there's an intersection there. It's pretty easy to build your skill set, to go and get more training. And especially with online options, you can seek out experts, you know, the best quality training worldwide. And then the other side of the spectrum were maybe people who feel like they do have some experience or some expertise and they've been teaching for a while. Well, I don't want to limit myself. I don't want to just be one thing and get stuck there. Then people won't know that I'm also good at X. But trust that if you speak consistently and you share really clear messaging, people will still come to you for other things as well.
Yeah, I mean, if you just need to be clear that in some way, maybe on your website or somewhere, that, you know, that you do have other services, or you can help with other things. And,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I think in those instances too, like maybe the niche isn't super duper narrow. You might have something more broad, although, you know, I think it's better to start with a more narrow niche and then, you know, over time broaden it. One thing that I want to add to, in terms of the niche, is if you are perhaps struggling to attract the people that you actually really want to help, I think having a niche and having that clarity, you know, as I said, it's almost this, it builds on itself. At least that's what I found, is that as I said, okay, I'm going to help. And this actually started out because of my case studies for my 500 hour, where I
Yes.
said, okay, I need to find 5 people and I want to help them with low back pain. So I started out with that, and that was really simple. It's like, okay, 5 people, like I'm not, after those 5 people, I can decide to change what I want to do if
Mm.
I've kind of gone like, I don't really like low back pain. But I did help those people quite well, and those people brought more people, and it gave me an opportunity to really hone my skills, which I think is
Mm-hmm.
worth mentioning, because if you're a generalist and you sort of do lots of different things, and say you're in that sort of second, third, fourth year, I mean, I think at any point as you start to go into a new niche, you get to really hone your skills and master your craft,
Mm.
which is such an amazing feeling. I think it's worth
It's more
mentioning.
satisfying.
It's really, it gives you that fulfillment, you know, to know
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, I have the skills, I have the experience, I have this wide toolkit, this varied toolkit. It's not just theoretical, it's because I've helped several different people with this
Yes.
problem.
And you've had in-depth conversations with them about it so that it's not in the terms that were in your anatomy text or in your training manual. You've heard it in people's own words, and you've heard how it might limit them from playing with their kids or, you know, or gardening. What a terrible thing to think about. But low back pain and gardening always go together in my mind. You get to hear about the ways that it's impacting them day to day. It's not theoretical, it becomes real. And once you've got that sense of having heard it in different people's words and impact on different people's lives, you can talk about it in a way that speaks to people more directly than just got low back pain, I can help. Yeah, you can make it feel much more like, I understand, I've been there, you could try this, you could try this. Mm.
And the other thing to add in here, which I mean, we might be on a bit of a tangent, but it's a good one, um, is those people that you help as you start off getting clearer on, and focusing more narrowly as you start to help more of those people, their testimonial for you, say, if you ask them for one, which I hope that you do,
Mm.
is probably going to be more about like, this person helped me so much. They were so knowledgeable. They made me feel really relaxed at ease. I'm enjoying my life much more. And that kind of review or testimonial you can take with you as you decide to broaden or change your niche, right?
Mm.
Most of the time, if we're still talking about yoga, obviously, if you decide to go from yoga to some other industry, probably not. But that's yeah, it's really worth noting that
Yeah,
you
I
can
agree.
build upon this foundation.
And the same way that doing repeated practice with people on a similar issue or a related need helps you to get to know that need a lot more intimately and in a lot more detail, the same way getting testimonials from people and hearing what they like about your teaching in their words actually helps you figure out what you're good at. Because sometimes what you think you're good at and what
Mhm.
people perceive you as being good at, they might not be exactly the same thing. So if you hear, three different clients say in their testimonials how you made them feel very much at ease, or you made it feel less serious and you made them laugh, or you really knew the nitty gritty anatomical detail, then you start to get a feel for, well, this is what I'm good at. This is what I'm known for. This is what I project in my teaching from the student's perspective, which is really the only perspective that kind of matters in terms of your communication onward. You can learn about yourself, and that helps you kind of pitch your content moving forward. I hope we're convincing
That's
people, get a niche.
get a niche, people. That's such a good point. And I remember when I was in this point of like, what is my niche and trying to figure it out, that I actually asked a bunch of my students that were coming to
Mm-hmm.
my group classes, which were more general, what do you love most about my group classes? Or what do you love most about my style of teaching? And that was such a useful exercise to
Yes.
hear, start to see where that overlap was,
Mm-hmm.
and to kind of go like, oh, okay, and help, get that external feedback. And not saying that you have to, niche in whatever they tell you, but getting that external feedback can help you start to narrow down and figure
Mm-hmm.
out, okay, I'm going to focus on this for the next little while.
Yeah, I filmed an online course for yoga medicine, marketing for yoga teachers, and that was one of the juiciest pieces of advice that I offered. Like if you don't really know who you are or what you're about, or even if you think you do, it's really worth sitting down with the kinds of students that you love teaching, enjoy teaching, look forward to showing up for. Don't, oh no, as they walk in the door, your ideal students, the ones that keep you teaching. You can learn so much. What brings them back? What keeps them coming? What questions are you answering for them? What need do you fill for them? That can really help you start to figure yourself out from a marketing sense, and how you present to other people. So, yeah, love that advice. Couldn't agree more.
And I think, yeah, we've kind of been gearing this conversation a little bit more towards teaching privates, but in terms of group classes, that information also helps you to build your group classes, because
Hmm.
as you become more consistent, and I think you can definitely apply this idea of niching to teaching group classes.
Oh, for
As you
sure.
become more consistent and you become well known for something, then you build your group classes in that way too, because students, they just love to know what they're going to get, right? They love
Hmm.
it in a general sense, maybe not like we're doing these exact same poses, no, but
But they know
they,
what kind of experience they're going to get. Yeah. And then
yeah,
you'll fill your
exactly.
class with the kind of students that you love to teach, which to me is the only way that I'm going to keep teaching for the rest of my life, is if it's not like, oh, I have to go to work, but oh, I get to teach. I really need to be excited about at least the majority of my students and feel like, yeah, I'm teaching them stuff that they need and that they're interested in and that I can see them learning from and benefiting from. Yeah, that's what keeps me going for sure.
And that then feeds into being authentic, right?
Hmm.
Because you're teaching what you're really passionate about and what you really know, and what matters to you as well, and what your values are. So you're not trying to copycat and be like someone else over there.
Hmm.
You're really, yeah, it's like the more you double down, the more you get to feel that sense of fulfillment and
Hmm.
authenticity, which then brings people back for more. So it's this just amazing system.
Yes. And again,
Yeah.
if you're a new teacher, don't hesitate to say yes to everything because I do think sometimes that's the only way you figure it out. Oh, actually, I did that. That was not me. I did that. I did not enjoy it. I did it. People seemed to like it, but I was exhausted. It took too much out of me. You start to get a feel for, I tried everything, and now the funnel's narrowing a little bit in terms of me being drawn to a certain direction. There's a compass kind of leading me this way because I've tried a bunch of other experiences and they didn't feel right. So you don't have to figure it all out from scratch. Say yes to everything and then start to narrow down from there. Hmm.
Or also you can say no to the things that you know are definitely not for you.
See, this is
You're
where you
allowed.
can tell our difference in generation straight away because I did for the first couple of years literally say yes to everything. And I got so many good learning experiences from it. I 100% don't do that anymore. In fact, I say no to almost everything. But I do think you can be surprised by getting yourself into not a dangerous experience, but a teaching experience that you didn't think would be for you. Like I didn't think I would want to teach a room full of people in their 60s, but love it, love it. But if you'd asked me in year one, I would have said absolutely not. Nope.
Yeah. I mean, different than say, I don't know, I suppose if you know straight away that like you're not really the right person to teach
Yeah,
a
I'm
team,
not
a
qualified.
football team. Like
Yeah.
I got offered to teach a football team in my first or second year, and I just said no to that straight
Hmm.
away. I was like, I'm not the right
I'm
person for
not.
that. I
Yeah.
just know that straight away. And the repercussions of putting myself through that experience was going to probably be more harmful than good. So there are certain things where you can discern, but I took lots of covers. I traveled
Yes.
an hour and a half away to go teach
Yes.
yoga in that first second year just to build up the experience and get
Hmm.
that exposure, because you do really need the experience and the
Yeah, same.
exposure.
And I would also try to go to that teacher's class first. So I had an idea of what their style was. And then I would try to do my version of their style. So it was kind of like I was testing out different teaching styles as well, which is energy intensive but fun. So hopefully we have convinced people that even if you don't know now, it would probably be helpful for you to start working towards a more specific group of people. They don't have to look the same. They don't have to be the same age or gender or demographic, but there are people who are coming to practice for the same thing, the same need, the same drive, the same thing brings them back to the mat. And it's something that you can help them with, or at least you're excited to help them with. And maybe you need to build your skill set and learn a bit more. But yeah, trying to find that overlap between what you're excited about, what you're good at or have knowledge in, and then what your community actually needs that they're not getting already. So, what about when we start to get towards creating content for social media? How do we not sit with the blinking cursor asking us
Can
what the
I
hell we're
just
going to say?
Can I
Yes,
just go back for one moment?
of
Something
course.
that just popped up for me is, we've been talking about what does my community need? And I think
Mm.
sometimes what holds people back is thinking that it's already been done,
Mm.
and so it's great if you can find that gap in what the community needs. But there's also opportunity if, even
Mm.
if it's already being done, if it's what you're really passionate about, and if it's really the problem that you want to help, you can still do it in your way.
I agree, and I think there's a concept that I learned early on in my actual marketing days, which was the abundance mentality. That I don't need to have every single student who's interested in doing yoga for back pain. I just need enough for my business to be sustainable. And in my community of 20,000 people, that's probably going to be about, 15,000 people. So there's plenty to
Yes.
choose from. You're
Yeah.
absolutely right. Just because it's being done in one way doesn't mean that it can't also be done in your way, because you're going to appeal to a different group of people, and you're going to speak in a different way. Hmm, I like
Yeah.
that.
All right. So let's move into the
The
next step,
content itself. Yeah.
the
You
content.
wanted to talk about content pillars, which I had never heard of, but made sense once I Googled.
Okay. I'm surprised you've never heard of content pillars.
Well,
I think
remember, I
it's
did
a
my marketing degree in the 90s, so social media didn't exist yet.
I think even within social media, it's probably a newer term. Not
Mhm.
like super new, but newer. Even yeah, I was thinking back to even I think it was about 8 years ago when I was this social media manager for yoga medicine. We didn't use the word content pillars, so I'm not exactly sure when this term came onto the scene,
It's a
but
good one,
essentially
though.
yeah, it is a good one because it gives you a framework and allows you to organize your content. So you can think of the pillars as the consistent topics or themes that you want to be known for. And most, social media strategies probably have three, maybe four. I think three is probably a good number, especially if you're new to this. Just keep it simple. Plus, I love the number three.
Same. It's the magic number. But yeah, it's like your core values, your consistent messages. And social media, I think this is something that's hard to wrap your head around if you're like most yoga medicine teachers and you're a really geeky student. Social media loves repetition. Social media
Mhm.
loves repetition. Social media loves repetition. So even though you might think, I've said this before, I've said this before, I've said this so many times, social media's life cycle is so short that really you do need to keep repeating, not exactly the same post, although you can, but just to be grouping your messages around repeated themes. So people don't see every single post. They're not slavishly hanging over your every moment on social media. So assuming they're going to miss some, assuming they've got other important things going on in their life and they might forget, repetition just reminds people, this is what I'm into. This is what I'm good at. This is what I know about. This is how I can help you.
And if we go back to the idea of that, you're solving a problem for people, hopefully you're doing your job well. And that, that low back pain for that person, if we're using this example, goes away, it's gone and they're great. And they're like, I love you so much, but I'm good now. See ya. And,
Mm-hmm.
as a teacher, you're pretty happy with that result, even though you might be, sad to lose them as a client. Um, but then the next person comes along with low back pain and they don't know
Mm-hmm.
what you've said 2 years
Mm-hmm.
ago, even a year ago, or even 3 months ago. So it's so worth it to, recycle and have a look back. I think that's a really great place to start, a simple place to start, as well as looking back at what you've already said about this
Mm-hmm.
particular problem or topic and say it again or reuse it or, change it. Maybe you post it with a photo and now it's time to post it with a, quick little video.
Yes.
So, yeah, that consistency and that repetition and having the content pillars allows you to really organize your ideas when you start to kind of brainstorm. Um, allows you to, yeah, to just kind of put them in like buckets, in a
Mm.
sense of like these are the three topics.
So maybe I know you've got some examples that might help people who are still like, not quite sure what you mean by the consistent message. Am I just kind of saying back pain three different ways?
Yeah, so there's a lot of advice, many ways to do this, and I think there's that potential to feel like you're doing it wrong. So perhaps there's this kind of a caveat that there's a lot of different ways of doing this, and obviously we're probably going to only talk about a few. But
Mm.
um, if we're should we go with the topic of low back pain?
Well,
So
since that's been our repeated theme, and it is like 80% of adults experience at some point in
yeah,
life. So I think it's a safe one. Let's go with low back
safe
pain.
one. Yeah, so I might be having one of my pillars might be around anatomy. So I might be educating my clients around the muscles that we want to become more aware of For example, transverse abdominis is one that most people have no awareness of. They're usually
Hmm.
more aware of their rectus abdominis, the more
Hmm.
superficial six pack muscle. So I could be, talking about anatomy and educating around muscle function and how to use it, right? And providing tips in that way. So there's,
Hmm.
even within that content pillar of anatomy, there's a lot of different things that you
Oh,
can
yeah.
do.
You could go the entire rest of your life on muscles that relate to the low back and low back pain. Yes.
Yeah. Maybe the second part of low back pain that, is really important to me is the stress relief component of,
Hmm.
a lot of people, they they work too much. They sit at their desk all day. They have certain postural habits or lifestyle habits, and they might need some awareness around those, or they might need some, mental practices, maybe some meditation practices, or yoga
Hmm.
nidra, or um, something that's going to kind of educate them about their nervous system, right? So you
Hmm.
might have like anatomy and the muscles, you might have sort of stress relief and nervous system as one of your content pillars. And maybe the third one is myofascial release. So they get some really, which is such a great one to share on
Yeah.
social media because
Gets
it's
people
really
in
quick.
quickly. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so myofascial release is a great one. If let's say this is our third content pillar, because I can start to, give short little practices
Hmm.
on, video wise or whatever. So I kind of have those three content pillars now. And I mean, within those are such broad topics.
Oh my God, that
So
gives you so many invitations of where to go and where to take it and how to start. Yeah, for sure. I think anyone could see how, oh, 3 buckets, but big buckets. I could go in so
yeah.
many different directions in those topics. Hmm.
And yeah, I think the big theme in social media these days is about adding value. So
Mm.
people come through and they feel like you're giving to them. So you're being really generous and they're learning something, or they're maybe inspired, or they feel entertained. So there's some kind of, exchange in that way where they feel that sense of value. So,
Hmm.
within those three buckets, you have so many ways of educating, inspiring, informing. um, let's talk about the entertainment one for a moment, because I did think of a good example. So say you're a newer teacher and you're trying to figure out, like, okay, well, um, I might not have something super specific, but I really love to teach feel good flows, and I'm starting
Hmm.
to get known for that. And I haven't done my 500 hour yet, so I don't know that I want to specialize in a certain therapeutic problem, which is probably a lot of our listeners. But so you're a newer teacher and you're really known for these feel good flows. So and perhaps your personality too is that you're funny and you're lighthearted and you love a good meme. So there's a lot of, I see this done really well, in that, like, posting funny memes could be one of your content pillars, that you put people at ease and you don't want them to take themselves too seriously, and that's kind of part of who you are and what you teach. I think that's fine
Oh,
to
that's
put
great.
to
It
use,
doesn't all
right?
have to
It's
be really nutty and, and serious and content heavy. You're still meeting a need, which is to put people at ease. And one of the things that I was thinking about as you said that is early on in my time of kind of narrowing down what I was doing as a teacher, I went back through all of my previous social media posts and kind of figured out what was generating a lot of comment or shares or likes and what was not. And I kind of figured out from that big survey of social media what people kind of want to see from me on social media and what people are responding to. And it helped me kind of cull a lot of the stuff that wasn't generating a response and think about different ways to frame that people liked from me more. And for me, people do like to see a little bit of silliness and a little bit of humor along with some dense anatomical information.
Mhm.
So yeah, it might be just that helps people figure out this is what people like from me. So let's meet that need and do it regularly.
Yeah, I think that's why you make a good point for posting regularly as well, because the more that you post, the more that you get that data and you start to see
Mhm.
what works for you and what
Yes.
works for your audience. And then you can refine as you go and get really clear. And that makes your social media even more powerful.
Mhm.
So, okay, so you're a newer teacher and you love to teach feel good flows and your students love that from you. and you're lighthearted and funny. So, okay, posting memes, could be, and they might be memes like relevant to, there's so many great sort of, spirituality or yoga related memes that kind of,
Hmm.
help us all, yeah, lighten up a little bit. So that could be one of your content pillars. Maybe your other content pillars are like little snippets of your sequences so
Hmm.
people can get excited coming to your class. Or if you teach online and you're already filming online classes, you can make a reel from the content that you're already filming. I mean, you could make like 10 reels from one 30-minute practice if
Hmm.
you wanted to. So, and maybe the third one is some kind of like, inspirational quote. Um, that could be like a carousel, or that could be just the quote itself.
Hmm.
The one thing I would say about quotes that I think it's always best to make them personal and relevant to whoever's reading them rather than just putting the quote and that's it. I think if you can invite in some kind of conversation or dialogue around it, then that's going to be a really effective use of that quote or that inspiration.
I love that. I mean, you're making it sound really easy, which it is if you know who you're talking to and you know the kinds of things that you're trying to say and you know the tone that people seem to like or enjoy or respond to from you. Then it does make the whole process feel a bit less daunting. And there was a great tip in there about reusing existing content. So if you've already written a newsletter, reuse snippets of that
Mm.
text as captions in your posts. If you've already filmed a class, you can take little reels out of that class, little snippets of the flow, or you could break down a transition that you did in that class. You don't have to recreate everything at the beginning every single time. I love that. Reusing previous posts, but just a slightly different slant on it, a different caption, a carousel instead of a single photograph. I think they're really good, useful tips. And you talked about posting regularly. So, how would this approach kind of help you with the scheduling side, making it feel kind of just part of your rhythm and routine as opposed to, oh God, I haven't posted anything in a month. I'd better do 5 posts.
I think there's a balance here that you need to strike, and I think a trap
Hmm.
that a lot of yoga teachers fall into is like, "Oh, I'm just don't feel inspired," or, you know, "I'm not moved," or, "I'm just not," "Spirit hasn't moved me," and we kinda
Hmm.
get into this bit of a, like, I'll do it when I feel like it. And I think you need to find that balance between going like, actually, this is a business
Yeah.
and consistency requires me to show up even when I don't feel like it sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And then also creating when you're feeling inspired. So,
Mm-hmm.
that might mean that you're blocking out a certain time of your week every single week and saying like this is dedicated social media time, or it might be, a few minutes of your day. I think it's really great to batch create content.
Yes.
If making content is not something that you love, I would just say set aside a day or two or three if you need to of your month and just go like my main priority is to do a whole month's worth of posts. So let's say we decide you need to decide as well like what's realistic and what's feasible for you.
Because I remember early on in social media days, every little mini course that I did, they would say, look, if you're not posting every day, don't even bother. And I stopped a lot of those courses because I was like, well, I'm not going to be posting every day. So I guess I won't bother. So I 100% agree with that. Consistency is important, but that doesn't mean daily. It means whatever you can do consistently for the long term to support your business, which might be once a week. It might be 3 posts a month. It might be 3 posts a week, but you got to figure that rhythm out, haven't you?
Yeah. And I think it depends on what you're using your social media for. So if
Hmm.
you decide that you want to really grow your social media account and that's going to be the main way that you're attracting new clients,
Mm.
then you do need to post quite a lot because that's just the way the algorithm works. But if your goal is not to have, a, an extreme amount of followers, but you just want people to be able to figure out when they do hear about you that you're for
Hmm.
them, you
Yes.
don't need to be posting every single day. You can post twice or three times a week. Um, I would probably say more than once a week, but maybe not. I don't. Yeah, look, I'm not. the strategy expert. But I think if we kind of think about that, we have these three pillars
Hmm.
that we've come up with, and we decide that we're going to post 3 times a week. That means making, nine posts over, right? That gets us to 9 posts. And then you decide, okay, I'm going to post, that's maybe like 3 weeks worth of content, or maybe that's a month worth of content for me.
Hmm.
And we sit down and we make those 9 posts. And
And you
maybe
have
day one
mentioned,
is,
oh,
yeah,
just before you go into the
yeah,
detail,
yeah.
you mentioned something there that I thought was really important of batch creation, but I think don't confuse the creation part with the creative idea part. Like if you think last 3 days of every month are my social media creation months. Don't imagine that you're going to get to the third last day of the month and just have a bunch of ideas clamoring in your mind. Capture the ideas whenever they come up. You're out for a walk with the dog, you're washing your hair. It's always times like that for me anyway that ideas slip into my mind.
Mm,
Capture those ideas whenever they come up. Maybe you've got like a Google document or a note in your phone. Capture the ideas so that when you do sit down for your content creation days, you've got 25 random ideas, sort of partially fleshed out ideas to work from. And that makes the whole process so much easier than just like, okay, I'm on my social media creation day.
yeah.
What am I going to do? So go for it, day one.
Yeah, I agree. And just if you are one of those people who gets your ideas in the shower, I'm one of them as well. I don't actually do this, but a friend of mine told me that you can actually get those, like it's basically like a kid's toy. Actually, my kids actually have
You're
them.
not
I
going to
should be
write on the
doing
shower
this.
wall.
You can write on the shower wall so you don't forget your idea.
I
Because how are you
disapprove
going to capture it
strongly. I'm
in the shower?
just going to wait the 30 seconds until I'm out of the shower.
But if you have kids who like to run in on you when you have a shower, you often don't get that 30 seconds to write down your
Oh
idea.
my
So
goodness. Look,
it's
you're
yours
just
is like,
convincing me yet again that I'm not cut out for parenthood. Just give me 30 goddamn seconds. I can imagine me saying that multiple times a day. Okay,
oh,
one way or another,
my
capture that
kids have
idea.
the kids have figured out how to unlock the door to my bathroom. Actually, just my son, my youngest one hasn't. Okay, so we've been probably all month long or whatever capturing these ideas when,
Hmm.
inspiration strikes. Write them in your notepad on your phone or in your journal. And there might be a sentence or two that goes along with the idea so that you don't forget. I really like this is a practice I've started doing recently, is actually writing the headline for the post
Hmm.
or the title for the post when the idea comes through, so that I've kind of have that all
You've got that
captured.
clarity. Yeah. Somebody asked me a question after class, and I immediately thought about QL and low back pain, or, whatever, the hidden secret to your low back pain, whatever your headline
Perfect.
is.
Perfect. We're going to see lots of these posts now. um, So maybe day one is about the writing and you flesh out those captions, or maybe it depends on what comes more naturally to you first. Some people might like to go and make the visuals first, so they might go and film or take the photos or find the photos. And then others might go, okay, now I've got them, now I can write the caption, or maybe you're transcribing. I think it's a really good tool. I think for yoga teachers that don't like to write or don't find writing comes that naturally. We all talk, I think,
For a
to teach
job.
our classes. Yeah. And so don't be afraid to actually, talk into your phone, talk the caption out, because also, really what works really well on social media is that conversational tone.
Mm. I do
At least
find
some
though that
things
that dictation function works a lot better with an American accent than it does an Australian or New Zealand accent. So
you might need
by
to
all
do
means,
some editing.
you might need to do some editing. Yes.
You might need to do some editings, but don't let
Yeah. Don't let that stop
not
you.
thinking that you're not a good writer, in
Hmm.
air quotes, stop you from still getting your content out. Because the reality is that if you're sort of using this system where you go, okay, I've got this niche, I've got this problem that I'm going to solve, I want to let people know how I can help them. I'm already helping people do this. I'm saying these things probably on a, daily or at least a few times a week, all this stuff's
Hmm.
coming out of my mouth. You're probably, and then you come up with your content pillars and your themes, again, of things that you probably say and teach all the time. Like,
Hmm.
let it be that simple. So you're not reinventing the wheel when it comes to creating your content. You're just having a avenue or a platform to share what you're already sharing when you're
Hmm.
face to face with someone, right? Or when you're
That
behind
makes
the
it sound
camera.
so much less daunting, doesn't it? Like, I already do this. I do this every day. I'm already teaching. I'm just trying to capture snippets of that teaching, snippets of what I do already, and share them with people who don't have time right now for the whole thing. But it'll give them a little seed that I can plant. But I'm doing it already. It's not something new and extra that I have to add, at least to start with.
Yeah, keep it simple,
Hmm.
take the pressure off.
Hmm.
See it. I think many people come become yoga teachers because they want to share what has
Hmm.
helped them. They want to share their passion. And I
Yeah.
think when you can see social media as another channel for you to share what has helped you and what has been so meaningful to you in your practice and with your students that you already have.
Mm.
If you don't have students, it's about what's helped you already. If you come back to that, it's just another way to really feel that fulfillment of and allow yourself to take up space.
Hmm.
You have a really valuable service. You want to teach, do it. Show people that you're a teacher,
Yeah.
show people, tell people, and that's what social media is so powerful for.
Yeah, and you don't have to be for everyone. You're just speaking to the people who need to know what you know, who need to hear what you have to share. So, don't let that intimidate you. Don't let that make you feel like I'm not sufficient to share this. If it helped you, it's going to be helpful for other people. You just got to be clear
Mhm.
on who those people are and how you
Yeah.
can get that message to them.
And if you're making a transition from having, say, a more personal account where most of your friends are, most of your followers are friends and family, then, just know that you're making that transition. So it's possible that you might not get a lot of engagement on these now very yoga related posts, but
Hmm.
you have to start from somewhere and you start to build on top of that. So, like we said, repetition and
Yeah.
consistency are your best friends.
So you talked about content pillars in a way that really frames the month out neatly. Like, if you've got 3 content pillars and you want to do 3 posts on each per month, then you've got 9 posts that you want to sort out. You can do them all in your couple of days of content creation, drawing from the ideas that you've already captured by writing on your shower wall. Still struggling with that a little bit. But yeah, now how do you actually get them into social media? Do you put a note in your diary? Are you a fan of the services that will schedule it for you? What's the next step from there?
I am a fan of the scheduling tools. I just
Hmm.
find that when it comes time to posting, it makes it a lot easier. It's all in one place,
Hmm.
and it goes from the scheduling app onto your phone, and you can post. Um, it depends on what platform you're using and what kind of content you're posting. Some types of contents you can do an automatic post. Some types of content you have to manually post. So it does depend. I am a huge fan of the scheduling apps.
Well,
Otherwise, you
obviously, if you
need.
don't have time to write down an idea when you get out of the shower, you don't have time to remember to do your social media posts.
No,
That's for sure.
definitely not. But otherwise, you do need to put manual reminders in your phone, or
Hmm.
you might, if you're a person with the luxury of time, it might be really easy for you to know, well, I'm at my desk every day at this time. So that's
Hmm.
social media time of posting. But I find that having it all prepared in advance, or at least, 80, 90% of it prepared in advance, just takes a little bit of that pain away when it comes time to actually posting. And
Hmm.
it can become more enjoyable to post and then maybe to stick around and engage with, people that might
Hmm.
comment or etc.
Yeah. So I think that sounds like a really great, for me anyway, it sounds like a very unintimidating start, that even if you're fairly new and you aren't super specific, like the feel good flow teacher, you've still given them some great examples of places where they might start to generate more engaged relationships with their students, just to kind of be a little bit more upfront with that signaling of who I am and what I'm about and what I can help you with. And you've also made it pretty simple to figure out what kind of content you're going to post, and even simple to schedule it in so that once you've done your content creation, it's not going to take much of your time day to day. Any other tips that you'd give for people who are just kind of starting out and the whole concept seems a little bit too much?
Keep it simple.
Hmm.
Post what it feels inspiring to you, but make sure that it's relevant to the person that you want to work with.
Yeah.
Um, Keep it broad if you need to. If that helps you to get started, you might stay more broad. And I think too, it's like allow yourself to experiment, allow yourself to try to have fun with it.
Yeah.
And most importantly, I think there's actually a yogic practice in here of non-attachment to the results.
100%. Diligent practice, non-attachment. Very much
Yes,
so.
it's just yoga.
It really is. Like you do, as you said, you have to show up some days on social media, even when you're not feeling moved to do it. You still need to be regularly engaging with the people that you want to engage with. And yeah, not getting too hung up on how many likes or how many comments or how many follows, but just trust that over time, number one, you will start to figure out what works for you and what doesn't, and you can kind of cull some posts and refocus your future posts. And number two, trust that over time you'll build a repertoire of, you know, shared practices and little nuggets of expertise that people will really benefit from. Like, I guess you could think about your social media account as, over time, people can access everything you know for free if they're just willing to keep coming back.
Yeah. And it does get easier. I
Hmm.
think if you create a system and you stick to that system
Hmm.
and you do that system on repeat, you will get better at that system. So that initial friction that you might feel and that, learning curve might be steep, but eventually it gets easier. It gets to be more second nature. And hopefully start to enjoy it more. And the last thing I'll say on this is to always keep coming back to your why. If you have that
Hmm.
North Star, if you know what it is that why you're here, why you want to teach, why you want to help people, that for me at least, that always gives me the motivation to then show up again when I'm kind of struggling.
Yeah, I think that's really helpful. And it fits into with pretty much everything we do at Yoga Medicine. It starts with the intention, doesn't it?
Mhm.
So we'll share to Dana's previous episodes, varied topics, everything from parenting to philosophy, but we'll link to them for people who want to know more about you and what you do. Where else would you send people?
They can go to my website. I'm actually, by the time this airs, I'll have a new website out.
Ooh,
So we'll put the link to that in the show notes.
brilliant.
And yeah, or contact me on Instagram, Donna D Yoga, and yeah,
Awesome.
excited
We'll link to that. We'll
excited for
also
this
link to the
to go out.
Marketing for Yoga Teachers course, and also a previous episode of the podcast that Tiffany and I did discussing our approaches to social media from a less marketing perspective, but just how we try to build a healthier relationship with it. If you're interested in this conversation, you can kind of dive into that aspect too. Well, awesome. Thank you so much, Dana. I think that gives people a lot of places to start with that niche. Don't think about the demographics, think about the need that draws people to you. And then content pillars, those really central values or ideas or areas of information that you want to share, and let that kind of drive the scheduling for you so that it becomes less of that inertia, less of that friction to overcome, and you just kind of find your way into a more comfortable rhythm. I love it. Thank you very
Okay.
much.
Thanks for having me, Rachel.
Thanks for listening to Yoga Medicine. If you liked the show, be sure to subscribe and leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you got something out of this episode, please spread the word and share it with a friend. You can find more information, articles, trainings, and classes at yogamedicine.com. Check us out on social media as Yoga Medicine, or you can email us at info@yogamedicine.com. Thank you for being part of our yoga medicine community.
The content of this podcast is not medical advice and is not meant to replace medical care. Please consult your healthcare provider to determine what is best for your unique healthcare needs.